continuing my deep dive into random conservative Facebook shit, we need to talk about a lot of the pro-Israel stuff that's on there, and there's specifically one... I'm going to use this one post to eliminate a bunch of ideas at the same time, because you've probably heard the idea that, actually, no, there is no genocide happening in Gaza. And this one comes from a weird place. So, I say conservative Facebook, but the person that we're going to be talking about is not claiming to be a conservative, but I think maybe that's one of the reasons why it's going to be a little bit more problematic. That said, before we go any further, I want to go into the fan art section, and this one is from Alexa Beach Bunny. Said, not sure if this is considered cursed, but here it is. My first Suris fan art. And I don't see how it would be cursed. Like, other than the fact that the thumb is very obviously in the wrong location. Aside from that, everything else seems fine. But then again, technically my character is a slime, so the thumb could be in the wrong location, and that is still canonical, because I could put the thumb wherever I damn well please, even right up somebody's ass. So, yeah, I think it's actually not as cursed as maybe you think. So Alex Beach Bunny, thank you very much for the fan art submission. If you want the fan art to be shown in the future video, please drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the post here, and it comes from a person just named Joe. They said, I'm a non-Jewish Canadian leftist. Okay, cool. So this is hitting a lot of marks. Canadian, so I'd assume further left than most average Americans because they have things like healthcare there, and they claim that they are a leftist. Cool. But they also claim that they're a Zionist. They are a Zionist who is tired of the genocide narrative. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that one cannot be a leftist and a Zionist, because a leftist is just somebody who is either highly critical of or thinks we should fully abolish capitalism, where capitalism and most of its constituents, we'll go ahead and call sycophants is another word we could use, tend to exist on the right side of the political spectrum. So, it's not unheard of for this to happen, but let's see what's going on here. I'm sorry if no one has told you this, but if you still believe a genocide happened in Gaza, you are a bumbling moron. Your employer should look at you and question your comprehension skills and intellect. They shouldn't trust you to tie your shoes, much less hold a job. They should absolutely question your confidence. Or your competence. I don't give a fuck if you don't understand. The Jewish community shouldn't have to live like this because you're too fucking stupid to use the internet. Figure it out, because I don't want to have to share the same space as you weirdos. Hashtag get lost, hashtag Zionism, hashtag end Jew hatred, hashtag... Okay, I think I know what's happening here. I think it's somebody who's seeing the anti-Semitism that has spread on both sides of the political aisle in response to Israel's bullshittery. And God, it's so funny when I see people in my comment section say that there are no anti-Semites on the left. I'm sorry, but wanting a particular economic package for humanity does not suddenly mean you are a more moral person. It does not suddenly mean that you are immune to things like racism. That's not how that works. Like, every leftist is not automatically morally good, but to be an idiot and think that they are is the kind of thing that gets us in us versus them shit all the time in the first place. So, said unapologetically pro-Israel, there was never a genocide in Gaza. Anyone who still believes there was is brainwashed. The pro-Pali movement is anti-humanity and anti-truth. I don't give a fuck if you don't understand. Jewish people feel abandoned by the left. Okay, so I can understand where this is coming from, to a degree. If you are somebody who grew up Jewish and the idea that you're always going to be oppressed in some way, shape, or form, and therefore you need a land that is exclusively yours to call your own, I can kind of understand where you're coming from there. But if I replaced the word Jewish with Christian, we'd call it a theocracy, and we'd start raising red flags. So why do we suddenly not have those same red flags when it comes to Israel, which is, in every way, shape, and form, a bit of an ethno-nationalist country? Jassa says, I feel scared due to Netanyahu, not Palestine or Gaza. So, I want to just look at some of the things here. We have, I'm not monetized yet, so if anybody wants to support my content, that would be super appreciated. You can subscribe here on Facebook, join my Patreon, Or you could join my Patreon or subscribe to me. Maybe that. I don't know if this person has otherwise decent takes, but we're talking about this one specifically. Michael Unirath says, not a left-right issue. The world sees exactly what's happening, and you're saying it's not happening? Get it? The irony of calling others brainwashed. A resolution passed by the International Association of Genocide Scholars that states that Israel's conduct meets the legal definition as laid out in the UN Convention of Genocide. Across the 3-page resolution, the IAGS presents a litany of actions undertaken by Israel throughout the 22-month-long war that it recognizes as constituting genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The IAGS is the world's largest professional association of genocide scholars and includes a number of Holocaust experts. Out of its 500 members, 28% took part in the vote, and 86% of those who voted supported the resolution. Okay, so that's cool that a Facebook comment says that. Let's actually go into the, 70-page document here? So this is from the Human Rights Council. This is the legal analysis of the conduct of Israel in Gaza pursuant to the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. So, this was published last year in September. And we're going to go to the conclusion real quick and see what they said. On the basis of fully conclusive evidence, the Commission finds that statements made by Israeli authorities are direct evidence of genocidal intent. Additionally, on the basis of circumstantial evidence, the Commission finds that genocidal intent was the only reasonable inference that could be drawn based on the pattern of conduct of the Israeli authorities. Thus, the Commission concludes that the Israeli authorities and Israeli security forces have genocidal intent to destroy, in whole or in part, the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Direct and public incitement to genocide is an act punishable under Article 3 of the Genocide Convention. For an act to constitute direct public incitement of genocide, the perpetrator needs to have directly and publicly incited the commission of genocide and intended to do so. Therefore, the incitement is criminal itself. It need not lead to the commission of any genocidal act, but it needs to be understood by the audience as a call to commit genocide. It may be expressed through speeches or verbal communication, kind of like the one Mustache Guy did, written or printed in social media material, kind of like what Goebbels made, or audio and visual mediums, kind of like we produce with our own fucking brown shirts. The Commission notes that consideration must be given to several factors, including the social and cultural context in which the act took place and the potential impact on the intended audience, which means that when they're figuring this shit out, they are also taking a look at the way that Israel has had to defend itself from actors that would want to harm them as well. They are looking at that and juxtaposing it to the actions that they are taking. Marco says also, you could just check the words of their own Security Council, the ranting and raving about making the streets run red, maybe. Jessa says, why do they just use intent and not action as well? Jessa, I can give you a social experiment to explain why. You and I are in an alley together. I aim a gun at your head. From my perspective, I know the gun's not loaded, and I don't plan to fire it. What is your perspective? Where do you think this gun is going to go? What do you think it's going to do? What actions are you taking because you know that the gun is there? Whether the gun is loaded or not, that's Schrodinger's bullet. To you, that gun may fire at any point, and your life is over. Genocidal intent is used because, like a loaded or non-loaded gun, all that matters is that the weapon was aimed. Once the weapon was aimed, everything else flies off from there. Jessa says, I think we're on a different page. The gun is being fired is my point. Right. So the reason that I say that is because the intent is infinitely easier to prove. You can get really, really wishy-washy on details when we start talking about things that have actually happened. The intent, though, is really easy to prove. So if you're a commission that is trying to hold somebody's feet to the fire, you take the fight that is easier to win. Tal says revolvers don't have safeties. I'll have you know, if that hammer is not pulled back, that is my idea of a safety. Although realistically, my revolver is my favorite gun to fire. I like plinking. Anyhow, in relation to the actus reus, direct indictment does not necessarily require such incitement to be explicit, but it must amount to a specific provocation of others to commit genocide, even if implicit, and it may not be vague suggestions. The directness of the incitement should take into account the cultural and linguistic content and whether the audience of such incitement understood its implication. Public incitement means that the incitement should occur in a public space or to members of the general public at large by such means as mass media, for example, radio or television. Social media would also be considered in a public space. So, if the Commission has documented numerous statements and assessed select key statements from 3 Israeli officials within the context of Article 3 of the Genocide Convention, the Commission assessed the statements of the Israeli President, the Head of State, and the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister, 2 of the highest positions in Israeli government, and the military chain of command. There have been many other statements, some stronger and clearer than those below, made by other Israeli politicians, including members of the cabinet or the smaller security war cabinet, by religious figures, and by media personnel. This discussion focuses only on statements by the 3 most senior political members. So, on 9th of October, Israel's defense minister said that Israel was fighting human animals and they must act accordingly. Gaza will not return to what it was before. There will be no Hamas. We will eliminate everything. If it doesn't take one day, it will take a week. If it will take a week or even months, we will reach all places. On the 13th of October, President Isaac Herzog stated, "It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It is not true, this rhetoric about civilians who were not aware and not involved. It's absolutely not true. They could have risen up. They could have fought against the evil regime that took over Gaza in a coup d'etat." I have a question. If I'm sitting here in Georgia and January 6th happens and the fuckers actually won, what influence do I get to have on that myself? This "they could have risen up" shit when it comes to civilians, that doesn't work if people are not already organized in an effort to take care of that shit. Then Prime Minister Netanyahu invoked Amalek through a televised address on October, saying that "you must remember what Amalek has done to you," says our Holy Bible. "And we do remember, and we are fighting. Our hero troops, they have one supreme main goal, to completely defeat the murderous enemy and to guarantee our existence in this country. We've always said never again. Never again is now." Similarly, in a letter, these Israeli soldiers and commanders in the war on November, Netanyahu stated, "Remember what Amalek did to you. This is a war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. We will not be set up in our mission until the light overcomes the darkness." Okay, so that was just very, very obviously an us versus them. That one's not necessarily fully genocidal, but it is super us versus them. The Commission notes, the other ones are, though. The Commission notes that in assessing the statements of the Israeli officials, it must take into account the context in which they were provided. It is therefore important to note that the statements were provided after October 7th, after Israeli forces launched military operations in Gaza. The statements were not only dehumanizing and expressed hatred towards Palestinians, but they included a direct reference to what Israel's retaliatory action should entail by reminding Israeli soldiers of the story of Amalek and the Amalekites, who had been persecuted the Israelites. Okay, never mind. I'm incorrect. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Do not spare them. Kill both man, woman, child, infant, ox, and sheep, camel, and donkey. Never mind. I was missing very important context. Very, very important context. Nope. That statement was genocidal. If you are saying kill every man, woman, child, infant, and everything that they need to survive all at once, yeah, that's genocide. That's genocide. That's all that is. Zero Life King says burn down Atlanta 2 Electric Boogaloo. Okay, look, sir, this is a Wendy's. That Saul lost his kingship for not killing the king of Amalek. Man, not wanting to do a genocide suddenly means you're the bad person. So, yeah. I'm sorry. I have no idea who you are, Joe, and I have no idea what other perspectives you have. But, this is your Facebook page. Islamic extremists use the language of oppression to manipulate the left. What if I'm not listening to the Islamic extremists? What if I'm listening to the Human Rights Commission? What if I'm listening to the commissions on genocide? What if I'm listening to the actual experts on things instead of letting my emotions get in the way? What perspective would I have then? Oh, right, the one that I just gave. Weird. Said you need a link to that? Oh, yeah, sure, here you go. There you go. Okay, also, a fair bit of what the Israel leadership has said sounds very much the 14 words, but swapping out white race for Jews. So yeah, that was what I wanted to go over. How horrifying. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Sawara, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.